Hey, welcome to Leaving Crazy Town with Finn and Sarah. Don't worry, our new studio is forthcoming. What are we going to talk about today, Sarah?
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Leaving Crazy Town. We're having some joy.
We're having joy.
Joy right there.
It was difficult to manifest this week, but I did it.
Yes, at times it can be difficult to manifest. It's been a challenging week, couple of weeks, but that's all right because we're leaving Crazy Town. We're not staying in Crazy Town. Yes. What are we going to talk about today, Finn?
Oh, I just said that to you.
Oh, okay.
And then you threw it back at me. We're going to talk about activation, response, and repair.
Yes. And the reason we're talking about activation, response, and repair is because what?
Finn and Sarah had a fight.
We had a fight!
Well, I'm not sure if it was really a fight, but anyway.
We're going to give you some examples because we know this happens to you, and we're going to talk. Well, Finn's always laughing when I'm the one that had the breakdown. So we're going to process.
Doctors in the house.
Quotes. So we're going to process what happens during an activation, which is when we get upset. And, you know, we always say in our work that we are responsible. So there's been lots of opportunities to get upset lately. And so we're going to break down an example and hopefully you can think of one and try to work one out for yourself. So where should we start?
Well, we should start with...
what happened?
Yeah, what happened. So Sarah and I will be speaking at a big book retreat at the Bill Wilson House in Vermont. Yay! In the second weekend of February. Which
coming up.
Yeah, it's coming up.
Next week.
Unless we don't post this video then. But maybe we'll post this on Friday.
Okay.
And we will be at the Big Book Step Study, or Big Book Retreat. Yeah. So we're very excited about it.
Very excited.
And we both have two very different approaches. So this is just like part of the
yes.
misunderstanding.
Yes.
And I approach how I deal with things in the future very differently than Sarah. And I approach how we do these videos very differently than Sarah. And we've gotten accustomed to that,
yes.
you know?
Yes.
But with the Big Book Retreat coming up, and we've known about it for like 2 or 3 months now.
Months. I mean, yeah. I would think I was asked like 6 months ago.
Yeah.
So it's been so early. Part of the problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then also when it comes to these videos and our podcasts that are being published by
Sober Curator.
The Sober Curator and a couple of women that work for that group, they were locked out of some of our accounts, and I was facilitating, like helping them get to our videos so they could upload the podcast. And, you know, there was a lot going on behind the scenes. And also another piece is maybe my lack of communication around that and some other things regarding Big Book and, you know, my own insanity of being a little quiet on my end about everything. You know?
All right. So what we're saying is we're acknowledging we have two different ways of addressing things in our lives. And that's what we're saying here is nobody's right or wrong. Nobody's good or bad. We always say that. But what's required is communication. So what happened, and I don't know how the thing I asked you a question and you responded to a text.
Sarah sent me a text that asked me to reach out to the Sober Curator people and send them, like, meet with them. And I responded with, I'll see if I can meet with them tomorrow because I was at work in Boston at the time. And she said, great. And then sent me another text that said, because they said they haven't been able to reach you, blah, blah, blah. And then she was asking about meeting today to discuss the Big Book, and then ask some specific questions about the timing of when we're sharing the steps. And then also, what else was in there?
It was just kind of asking
about when we're meeting, about Big Book Retreat, and then about this thing with the Sober Curator. And my response, I got bumped a little bit about the not being able to reach me because I felt as though I had put so much effort into trying to get these videos get the sober curator people access to the videos. So I was a little bummed there, but I didn't really address that at the time. I just said, I made an appointment.
Right.
I made an appointment with them.
Right.
And then the big book thing, I got a little bumped because I'm like, I thought we've already discussed the timing in my mind, and once it's discussed, it's done, like, clearly, but I don't think we really talked about it.
Right.
And I also had agreed to meet this morning, and then I even said I could meet earlier than Sarah suggested. So I was a little confused when...
What's so fascinating is I never knew that your text that you sent me, like you're saying now, like I was bumped on those two things, but I didn't know that, like, until just now. So
I didn't realize it until after.
Later.
Well, because my
Right.
response
No, it's
about
good.
the time, and that's why when we talked later, I
Right.
said we have two different
Yes.
approaches, and instead of like coming to a consensus about, okay, like acknowledging this is how you do it.
Yes.
I kept pushing away the way you do
Right.
it.
Right.
And you kept pushing in, trying to get me to
Yes.
like meet, to
Right.
talk about it.
Right.
And I felt bumped because I'm like, I thought I already agreed to meet. Why are you
Right.
like,
Right.
but...
All right, so let me just say this. So this is the thing, you guys. I know that you guys have gotten texts occasionally, right? That you read and you have an activation and an intense response in your body, okay?
So I responded to Sarah's want to meet about Big Book with, I think I'm going to just pray and let it unfold. And, basically talking about how, at least this is how I felt
Yeah.
the text was, about how I was going to deal with it.
Yes.
And say that, and I was trying to share that I was a little bumped because the way she keeps talking about it, in my mind, it's like always, even though that's not the
Right.
truth, really.
Right.
It just felt like she keeps bringing it up. It was giving me anxiety.
Right.
Not that she can give me anxiety.
Right.
But her method and me feeling like it was being put on me was giving me anxiety. So I was
Right.
trying to explain that in the text. But, in a text, you don't have a lot of information. So I believe how it came across was, you need help. You need to do it my way. You should pray. Stop, relying on yourself. Like, why are you thinking about it so much? I just want to show up and do it. Like, it's not what I said, but I could see
No.
how it could be read that way.
Right, so that's what we're talking about. Is like everybody gets texts that however we read it, it has a response. Again, not to say anybody's meaning to say a certain thing or like, it's just implying there's a miscommunication.
And there's
of some
such a
kind.
good video on some social media thing that I saw where there's one guy getting text and he's in a rage.
Yeah.
And there's a happy guy getting text and he's really joyful. And they're both interpreting the text
In a
as
totally
either
different
like
way.
mean or joyful. And it's hysterical to watch because they're reading the same thing.
Yes.
But they're having like a completely different response.
Yes. Yes. And so what we're talking about is owning our response. Obviously, if we have a great response, then we'll respond appropriately. But what happened to me that day is I read Finn's text and I have a total reaction. And I know Finn enough that I know that nobody's trying to make me feel that way. But what I felt is I felt dismissed. I felt invisible. I didn't feel heard or valued. Like I looked at this afterwards, but in the in-between, I made a voice text. I was in activation and I sent Finn a voice text like, what the fuck? Like, I'm just trying to get together with you. I don't think it's unreasonable. I'm just trying to ask you some what, like a couple of F-bombs, blah, blah, blah.
And for me, I was like, my text did not land the way I meant it because I thought I was putting it like all back on me and agreeing to meet early, which is what I was doing, but that's not how it was received. So I was so shocked.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So what we often talk about here is when you have an activation, you got to take responsibility and look at it and do some writing. So within like 5 or 10 minutes, I sent him a text and I said, look, I'm aware it's me. Give me a few minutes. And then
in the meantime, when I
ahead.
got the message, I started to write a text because I was like, whoa. And, it was and I stopped myself because what I did was when you sent me the other text about what was going on for you, I was like, your friend's hurting.
Right.
And that's not what I intended.
I
and
know.
even though I know you don't think I intended it,
right.
I wanted to respond to how you were feeling instead of the message you sent me.
It was huge. And this is the other thing. When someone sends you an aggressive text, like a reaction, and I know it's hard to not react, but you did an unbelievable job, because Finn sends me back and says, geez, I know you're upset. That wasn't my intention. And you know what that did to me? Totally de-escalated me. So I wrote him back and I said, look, that was really helpful. This is what was happening for me. And we ended up talking and working it out within a couple hours.
Yeah, and coming to the realization that how I deal with things that I have coming up in the future is, Sarah's been preparing for it. I can't. It stresses me out.
Right.
So what I do is when it pops into my head, something I'm nervous about, I say, you know what? I'll think about it when the time comes, Now, Friday night, when I have to speak, I will be peeing myself in fear and on my knees in the bathroom begging God for help, because that's how I roll. Like, I don't want to ruin the month before stressing out. And you don't feel ruined because you're
It helps my anxiety.
Yeah,
right.
But see, for me, it helps my anxiety to just retrain my mind, put it over here. Like, I'm not going to think about it.
Is this a gender thing?
But
no, go ahead. All right.
It could be. But what we decided was, wait, let's, instead of Sarah saying, this is what I'd like to do, this is what I'm doing, and me saying, I can't do that, this is what I do, to come to some understanding,
like we have
preparing for her. And probably thinking, like, we're doing this together, right? That's the piece.
Right.
Is if we don't actually come to an agreement and sort of get in sync about what's going to happen, it's not going to be great for anybody.
Right.
And for me to understand, like, your method isn't wrong. It's your method.
Right.
It doesn't work for me.
Right.
And me not wanting to prep doesn't mean I don't care about it.
Yes.
Because we all know I'm gonna
You're gonna nail it.
I'm gonna be dynamic when I get there.
You know what I mean? It's like I was said to Finn. It's like people that study like the night before and then get A's, and I literally had to study for weeks and months before an exam. So again, no right or wrong, but so what are the messages we're trying to get across in this video? Acknowledging your differences with people. Honoring how you see something and what works for you is important. Trying to not react to someone's text or someone's communication.
You know what? And Sarah and I have had many of these.
Yes.
So we're experienced in it. And I will say I remember I don't remember what it was. We were in my truck and we ended up in a screaming match and we were both crying and yelling at each other. And then one of us paused.
Yeah.
I mean, that is it. So you could go back and forth, but pause. I know so many people in my life, I did this all the time. I get a nasty message, F you, I'm done. Right. And then I'm gone. But we've made a decision from the day we became friends that we want to be able to be honest with each other. Yes. And you know what? If you really care about the people in your life, you can be a safe space for them to flip out.
Yes.
And then come back to and like a safe landing pad, like, oh, and that's how you work through it, right? One of you, all you have to do is one of you pause.
Yes. And the thing to remember in co-crazy recovery is what? What do we say all the time?
All about me.
Yes. My feelings, my thoughts, all about me. And again, what Finn is doing is not about me. So it's remembering what? Not taking things personally. What comes out of someone else's mouth, what their behaviors are, not about me, that's about them. It's a huge thing to really get that. And it's unbelievably liberating when you're not taking stuff personally. And it's not to say you won't have feelings about it and you can't communicate it. But what other people are doing, feeling, saying is not about you.
I mean, after I got Sarah's message, I wanted to call her up and tell her off. Don't get me wrong.
Exactly.
I just stopped myself from doing it.
Yes.
Because I wasn't in such a reaction.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because I get in reactions and I don't pause. So I want to be very clear about that. This is just an anomaly moment where I was just like, maybe because I was at work, I didn't want to like spin off. I don't know. Who knows?
All right. So the tips of the week: pause if you get activated, and also remember you're responsible for your reaction. So do some writing. A lot of times it's helpful. What am I afraid of? What old belief is this triggering? Anything else?
And if your reaction to a text or something, that's the other piece. Remember,
We don't know the facts.
whatever the emotion is or you're putting into the text, you're putting it in there.
Yes.
Not the person who sent it. Like, and that's all
Very
made
true.
up. Because I listen to people sometimes read me a text like, sure, I'll go to dinner. And I'm like, is that really what it says?
Exactly.
Or is it, sure, I'll go to dinner?
Yes.
Like, you have no idea. So get clarification.
Yes.
Get clarification.
And facts. We love you. Fasten your seatbelt. We're leaving.
We're out of here.